Welcome to the In Tune Guitar Academy for the love of guitar. How to play a three-chord song in 30 days if you've never played guitar before. Lesson 1. This video assumes that you have access to a guitar and that you've never played guitar or you don't have very much experience with playing guitar. My name is Frank. I'm a Canadian-based musician, songwriter, and guitar teacher. I live in North America, so much of what I say is going to be based on that fact. But I hope you can adapt to wherever you live. I hope you can adapt my message to wherever you live. If you don't have a guitar and don't have ready access to a physical store that you could walk into, there are many places online where you can order a guitar. Amazon's a good place to start, but more specialized music store is probably a better place. Such as in Canada, there's a chain of music stores called Long & McQuaid that has a very good online presence, and their stores are fabulous as well. Also, in the United States, there's a store called Sweetwater Music that also has an excellent online presence. But there's so many more to choose from. If you want to choose your own or search for your own, just go on Google and type in online music stores. I'm sure you're going to find many to choose from. Also, once you've found a guitar store that you want to maybe try out, before you actually purchase anything, check out the online reviews to see what other people have to say about their experiences of shopping with that particular store. My advice to you is to make sure that the guitar is not too big or not too small for your body size. Always keep that in mind. You don't want a guitar that's physically uncomfortable to hold, because it might discourage you from playing down the road. And also, you don't want to be wasting your money buying a guitar if you're not going to stick with it. In Canada and the US, I would recommend that you don't spend any more than, say, $200 to $300 for a particular guitar for that very reason. Because you're just starting out, there's no need to spend too much money, and of course, as I said before, you don't know if you're going to be sticking with it. There's also a lot of good guitars in the $100 to $200 range. If you want to try shopping for a second-hand guitar, I'm sure you're going to find many that are available to you through your favorite source of online second-hand goods stores. In Canada, we use Kijiji. In the United States, I think they use Craigslist, but there's many different websites that cater to people looking for second-hand goods. But if you're under 18, definitely get your parents or guardians involved. Always be extremely cautious when buying anything online, and especially when it's secondhand from a stranger. I can't stress that enough. If you're under 18, don't communicate with anybody online that you don't know. And remember, an expensive guitar won't make you sound any better if you're just a beginner. It's not about the equipment that you have, it's more about how well you play your instrument. What to look for when you're shopping for a guitar, or when you receive your purchase from the post office or from a courier. The number one thing is to make sure that the neck, which is the long thin piece that sticks out from the body of your guitar, this piece right here, you got to make sure that's nice and straight. If it's not straight, then you're going to have trouble getting it in tune, and you'll have trouble keeping it in tune. And I'm a stickler for keeping my guitar in tune, and so are most serious guitar players. The other thing to look for is you want to make sure that the neck isn't too wide to hold, because you want to be able to make chords, and some of the chords you have to stretch right across the fretboard to be able to make them. And you also want to make sure that the action is just a fancy word for how high the strings are from the fretboard. You want to make sure that the action isn't too high or too low. If it's too high, you're going to have trouble forming the chords and creating notes. And if it's too low, you might end up with a nasty buzzing sound. You also want to make sure that the fret edges aren't too sharp. So the guitar, your typical 6-string acoustic guitar, which this one is, and by the way, I'd recommend that you start off with an acoustic guitar. Many people are tempted to start with the electric guitar, but the electric guitars tend to be easier to play, so I always recommend to start off with an acoustic. This has steel strings. You have the option of going with a guitar with nylon strings. Many beginners will think that nylon strings are easier on the fingers and easier to play with when they're starting off. So back to the fret edges, you want to make sure that the edges of the frets, so the guitar is made up of a series of frets. Your neck has these kind of rectangular shapes or square shapes that are called frets, and the wires are the borders for these frets. And you want to make sure that the fret edges, the wire where the wire meets the edge of the fretboard, you want to make sure that they're not sharp, because as you move your hand up and down the neck of the guitar, if they're sharp, you're going to find it very irritating on your fingers and irritating on your hands, and it could damage your skin. It's just another thing that could keep you from practicing, and you might end up not playing as much, or you might end up giving it up altogether, and we don't want that. You also want to make sure that the guitar doesn't buzz, but if you're an absolute beginner, that's hard for you to check. So that's something that you need to talk to your sales associate from whichever store that you buy the guitar from, whether it's a physical store that you can see the person face to face, or if it's something online, talk to one of the associates. Most of them are very helpful and very knowledgeable. Most people that work in music stores are very knowledgeable and very helpful. That's why I always recommend going with a music store as opposed to, say, Amazon or some other general form of store where they're not specialized in musical equipment, because you want the salespeople to guide you, not just sell you anything. So let's sum up what we've learned. Number one, you want to make sure that the guitar is the right size. So you can see I'm about 6 feet tall, average width, so this guitar fits me very nicely. It's a standard size guitar. And if you're smaller or bigger, you want to make sure that the guitar is not too small for you or not too big for you, because you want to be comfortable when you play. You want to be able to have a proper posture. Number two, if you're buying your first guitar, be a smart shopper and don't overspend. You don't want to be wasting your money or your parents' money if you're under 18, if your parents are buying the guitar for you. So you want to make sure that you don't spend too much to start off with. Number three, as we mentioned, we want to make sure that the neck is straight, and the best way to check for that is to just hold it up and I use one eye and trying to visualize down the length of the neck to make sure that it's straight. Another way of doing it is if you put a tuner on the edge, you can see if it stays in tune all the way down the neck. But if you're an absolute beginner, then you won't know how to do that. So the best thing to do is just physically check and just aim your one eye straight down the neck to see if it's straight, if it bends a little bit. You want to avoid that as much as possible. Number four, we want to make sure that the fret edges on the edge here, we want to make sure that they're not too sharp, because we don't want any irritation on your fingers, especially as you're forming your calluses, because as you start to play, you'll find that tips of your fingers will start to get a little bit hard, and that's hard enough for beginners to accomplish without having that irritation of sharp fret edges. Number five, make sure that the action isn't too high or too low, so that's the height of the strings off the fretboard. You want an average shape. You want to be kind of comfortable when you hold it. And then number six, narrow your choices down to 2 or 3, and then read the customer reviews if you're buying it online, or ask around other people. Say you pick a brand, a particular model, ask other people who play guitar, or other people that are sort of at your level or maybe a little bit higher up in level of playing. Ask them if that's a good guitar, if you'd feel comfortable with that, or talk to your sales associate. Have a nice conversation with whoever is selling you the guitar. Don't be shy to ask questions. It's, after all, you're giving up your money for something and you're the customer, so you need to have that service from whoever's selling you the guitar. But before you rush off and order your new guitar, we need to discuss the basics of the guitar, the ABCs of the guitar. That's going to be the topic of our next video. So thank you for joining me, and this was lesson 1 of how to play a three-chord song in 30 days or 30 lessons. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.